Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're opening the case file on the fictional film Dhurandhar. We're going to be doing an intelligence-style debrief, peeling back the layers of the story to really understand its core subject, its operational context, and of course, its tactical risks.
So, here's our briefing agenda for today. We're going to start with the subject's initial profile and then go deeper with each section, analyzing the mission, the potential political fallout, and the methods they used. Okay, let's dive right in.
Our initial report, which is based on open-source analysis, profiles the protagonist, Dhurandhar. But here's the thing. He isn't presented as some kind of hero. He's a man of principle who's been pushed right to his absolute limits.
And this quote, it really nails the core theme of one analysis. The story kicks off with Dhurandhar living this quiet, disciplined life. He believes in law and honesty. He's not out there looking for power. In fact, his whole deal is control and restraint.
You see, his transformation is a slow burn. It's this four-step descent that's driven by a deep institutional betrayal, not some simple quest for power. The key thing to focus on is his internal conflict. He isn't motivated by ego. It's all about the raw need to survive in a system where being honest gets you nowhere. But you know, this character study is only the first layer of our intel.
So, what if his transformation wasn't just about personal survival? Some of the intel we've gathered suggests there's a state-sanctioned operational context that we absolutely need to consider.
To really get a handle on the mission, we have to look at the timeline of real-world events that supposedly inspired the film's whole premise. These two major attacks created huge political pressure for a new, much more covert strategy.
And this is where the story's hidden layer is revealed. The character we think we know as Dhurandhar is actually an undercover agent. His real name is Jasirit Singh Rangi, and he's operating under the alias Hamza Ali.
So, while he's operating as Hamza Ali, his actions aren't just random power grabs. They're calculated steps in a high-stakes intelligence mission. Every single moral compromise he makes becomes a tactical decision. Now, let's see how this whole mission blows up into a pretty significant geopolitical risk.
Now, the film frames the agent's story as this heroic success. But a more critical analysis starts to raise some serious questions about where inspiration ends and where political propaganda begins. You see, the film's most controversial claim is that the 26/11 attacks happened not just because of an intelligence failure, but because of a traitorous Indian government.
Let's look at a direct comparison of these narratives. One source argues the film is blending fact with fiction to paint the government of the time as treacherous. But on the other side, historical reports point to systemic, logistical failures, not malicious intent. The counterargument here is pretty simple. If you're going to make extraordinary claims, you need extraordinary evidence, and the film might not have it.
And this leads us to the primary tactical risk of the whole Dhurandhar narrative, its power to shape how the public remembers real history. And to understand that, we have to analyze the film's methods.
The film is definitely known for its graphic violence, but to really assess its impact, we have to understand that not all violence you see on screen serves the same purpose.
One analysis breaks down cinematic violence into these three types. The key difference between them really boils down to the context and, how far away it feels from our own day-to-day reality.
The argument here is that the violence in Dhurandhar, even though it's graphic, falls into that distant fantasy category. It's a world of spies and gangsters. It's pretty far removed from most people's lives. So the violence becomes symbolic. It's there to serve the story, not to reflect reality.
So from this perspective, the violence in Dhurandhar itself isn't the main issue. The real tactical risk is in films that show and maybe even normalize violence that is a recognizable part of our society, especially when the person doing it gets away with it.
All right, let's summarize this case file. What are the key takeaways from this really multi-layered story?
We've seen how you can look at the same story through totally different lenses. It's a character study, it's a spy thriller, it's a piece of political propaganda, and it's a case study in cinematic violence. Each lens shows you a different intention and a different potential impact. It's a seriously complex cultural artifact.
The film uses real events to anchor its fiction, but as the intel around real-world attacks shows, reality is almost always way more complicated than any single story can show. That's why understanding the line between fact and narrative is so critical.
And that leaves us with one final provocative question. In an age of stories inspired by true events, who's really responsible for figuring out the truth? The person telling the story? Or us, the audience? That's all for this explainer.